let's talk. Where do I find God, man?
Yeah.
How did that whole thing go down, man?
Do you remember where you were when you had the idea?
What I remember, so
because that's kind of the song that started it for you, right?
That's changed my life.
Okay.
And so what happened was,
what a great song to do that too, man. Not cookie cutter, not just like
I'm
commercial.
so proud of that.
Yeah, man.
Should be.
We was so I was doing this thing, like I was getting started, and I was trying to build my social media, because that was, you got to have your social media up. So I was like, all right, well, I don't know how to do that. And me and Jake Owen was buddies, and he was like, man, you need to just like play some songs or whatever on Instagram. I said, okay. So I started going to church, and I would come home and play whatever song we played at church. Mm-hmm. And I called it Gospel Song Sunday. And so that's kind of how I started doing it. Well, people got used to it and they liked it, and they got to talking about it. And so it kind of grew from Gospel Song Sunday. Well, then Connie Harrington hit me up on like Facebook or something. She was like, hey, oh yeah. She was like, I would love to write a song with you. And I was like, man, and I'm getting going. Like I had a few writes, some names, but it was, I'm still cracking. I'm beginning,
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, let's write. I really like what you're doing. I said, cool. And I'm excited. Well, I go to town, and she goes, I got this idea. It's called Where I Find God. I said, it was Connie's idea. And I said, I love that. And I said, well, just by the title, I said, I can relate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
Deer Stand, Hayfield.
John Boat. Yeah.
Interstate back to Nashville. Like all this stuff.
No doubt, man.
And then hers, like she has a little lake house and stuff. And we both spend time on the water. And she was like out on the boat, and all this stuff. And I was just thinking about whenever I was growing up, me and my brother being on the boat with my dad, he'd just like, boys, be still. Just be still. Mm-hmm. And that was a line in there. And then I said, well, I see this as kind of being like a good old boy's prayer too.
Mm-hmm.
Like how does a good old boy that is not a preacher or whatever, how does he pray
for?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why at the end of one of the verses it says, thanks for everything. Well, that's kind of how I would do it, especially, it's like when you're new in the faith, you're brand new and you're just learning, like, trying to be a good Christian, trying to
figure out how to talk to God.
Figuring out how to talk to God, how to pray. Like, you're not going, a lot of people say, thanks for nourishing my body. Like, we don't talk like that. Well, how does a good old boy pray? He
thanks
says,
for that cheeseburger.
Thank you.
Thanks for the food.
Thank you for Cletus. And, and thanks for everything.